Hello my bookish besties and welcome back. In today's video I thought it would be fun to do a rest of year TBR. If you have not seen the rest of my videos or if you're new here, I am going to Dragonsteel Nexus this December. If you don't know, that's Brandon Sanderson's like giant convention. It's like basically a convention where everyone meets up and they talk about his books, and there are other authors there, but like it's mostly him. And my big goal is I'm really trying to read all of the Cosmere before December. It's crazy. It's a really big goal, but I think with this timeline I have put out, I can read most of it. I think by the time I go, I will have 2 books remaining, 2 or 3. So like, that's pretty good. But anywho, in order to do that, but in order to also maintain my sanity, I have scheduled out the rest of my, it's got wet, so don't judge. This is the rest of my year, my plannings, and I thought it would be fun to go ahead and give you a little sneak peek of the books that I plan to read the rest of this year. We're going to start with September. The day I'm recording this is September 8th. Jeez. So, I will go ahead and start with the book I've already finished so far this month. I have already read Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I almost picked this up back in like June, I want to say, and so many people were like, no, this book is peak fall, and they were correct. So, this is the only book I finished so far in September, if I'm being honest. But you know what? It was like peak September autumn vibes. I'm not going to tell you a ton about it because that's for my wrap up, but basically this is about, it says with murder, I can't read, with magic, murder, and prose that reads like music. So basically it's like a murder mystery, like dual timeline type thing. This guy returns home to this small island to bury his mother who has passed away. Her like only goal was to be buried on this island, and we follow kind of his journey in returning, but also like the people in the town and kind of what happens. And this is one of those books that's like really hard to explain. It reminded me a lot of several other books, but yeah, I do think that it was really good for spooky season because it definitely has an element of murder, an element of magic, but this was technically the first one on my September TBR. My main priority in September is reading Words of Radiance. This is my big Cosmere read for this month. It's over 1,000 pages, like only 1,080-ish it looks like, so really not terrible. My cover is ripped a little bit. That's crazy. Anywho, this is like my big chunky read for the month. I finished Way of Kings, which was Stormlight Archive book 1, in about 2 weeks. So I'm thinking if I maintain that pace, I can finish this week. I'm only 50 pages in, but I read those 50 pages pretty fast. So I'm thinking if I just dedicate a day or 2 to like really get into it, I could read this super quickly. Obviously I don't want to read it quick to the point that I'm like not retaining information, but I do fear that I will become obsessed with this and just absolutely devour it. Like I read 500 or 600 pages of The Way of Kings in one sitting, so there's a really good chance I'll do that here too. But this is, fun fact, the highest rated book on Goodreads, so if that's saying anything, I probably am going to eat this up. But yeah, like I said, this is book 2 of the Stormlight Archive. This is my Cosmere catch-up goal for the month, followed by Edgedancer. This is a novella that happens in between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. So my goal is to finish Words of Radiance, maybe read a book or 2, and then finish this by the end of September. My like big goal would be to finish Words of Radiance and this and start Oathbringer, but we'll have to see about that. Next, and technically my current read, is I have this ARC copy of The Last Dragon. This is a new book coming out by Monty K. Rue. There we go. She is a debut author, and I was lucky enough to receive an arc of her book. I also backed this on Kickstarter. The book looks gorgeous. It is advertised as for fans of Divergent, Fourth Wing, and Attack on Titan, which are some of my all-time favorite sources of media, so I'm really excited about this. As of today, I'm about 30% through, and so far I'm loving it. It releases September 20th. I think that this book is gonna be really, really good. Just to be honest with y'all. Like I said, I'm 30% through and I already am loving it, and I have seen so many people rating it 4 and 5 stars. So I'm really intrigued to read more of this. My goal is to finish this week because obviously I want to get my review out before the publication date. But yeah, I will update you guys with this as I continue to read it. But this is another one that's like a must read in September. I also would really, really love to get to Ninth House in September. Part of me is like, ooh, I should wait for October to read this. But then the other half of me is like, this is my best friend's favorite book and her birthday is in September. So I feel like as a fun little birthday surprise almost, I should read this because I just read the craziest line. I shouldn't have flipped through. That was crazy. It said, I'm not even gonna say it. Anywho, I feel like as a fun little surprise for a birthday, I should finally give this read because I've been saying I'm gonna for like 2 years, and supposedly the third book is about to drop. Ninth House is basically about a girl. Her name is Alex. She becomes a member of Yale College, but she is asked to help. I don't know how to describe it. Like, she ends up in some kind of secret society and is like I think she's like the protector of the secret society. So she's tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Ew. Oh, it says they raise the dead. And sometimes they prey on the living. Anywho, I have heard that this is like the perfect spooky season book. I don't know a ton about it other than it is very crazy. But I'm really excited to give this a shot. I really hope I love it. I love Leigh Bardugo, so. And like I said, my best friend's favorite book, and Heath from Heath Reads, is that her username? I'll link her down below, is one of her favorite books too, and I feel like our tastes are pretty similar. Anywho, next and kind of a newer addition to this list is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. I have heard that this book is described as kind of like Harry Potter. Basically, there's, I think, 6 houses, or like orders. You've got like the Raven, and I don't really even know who else. I have so far only read 14 pages. I read the first chapter the other night in bed, and that's as far as I've gotten. But I do know there are multiple orders. I think there's like a fox and maybe a monkey, and our main character is obviously part of the Ravens. They are known for being smart. I think that's why it's called The Raven Scholar. Basically, this book is about the emperor is looking for a replacement, and he puts these people through trials to figure out who the next replacement will be. But there's also a murder. I don't know who gets murdered yet. My guess is it is the emperor, but anywho, we'll see what happens. She is trying to figure out the murderer while also competing in these trials to potentially be the next emperor. And I have heard so many good things about this. So many people have said it's their favorite read of the year. My dad just read it and he said he loved it. And if you have been around a while, you know my dad and I have essentially the exact same taste in books. So I think I'll really like it. Like I said, I've read the first 14 pages. I loved the first 14 pages. I just am reading literally like 5 books at a time right now. So this is going slightly on the back burner so that I can finish my arc. Yeah, that's about it. I actually think that's the only one that kind of takes precedence over this right now. But anywho, next we have Long Live Evil. This is by Rees Brennan. Again, I started this today. I read 67 pages. This is my current audiobook technically. I do have the physical book obviously, but my Libby had it available on audio, so I was like, this seems like a fun one to listen to during my car rides this upcoming week and however long it takes me to finish. But this book is about a girl. So this takes place, it's like multiple POV, and the first chapter I'm pretty sure was told from her sister's point of view, and that's why I was confused. Basically, it says, as her whole world collapses, Ray still has books. Dying, she seizes a second chance at living, a magical bargain that lets her enter the world of her favorite fantasy series. So far, what I've read has been so like campy and not serious, but like in the literal best way possible. It's breaking like the fourth wall because it's a book inside a book that knows it's inside of a book. So she'll say stuff very modern, like earlier there was a scene, this isn't a spoiler, this is like literally page 20. She's like talking to the king and she's like, oh yeah, that's crazy AF. And he's like, AF? And she's like, as foretold. And it's just funny. I've seen a lot of negative reviews for this book saying like, you know, it's too modern, but I think that's the point. I think this is one of those books that is not supposed to take itself too seriously. But yeah, I'm having a really good time with it so far. Like I said, I have met the author actually, and she was so funny in real life. I've talked about this before, but we discussed the Vampire Diaries. She wrote Team Damon in my book. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this. So far, I'm really loving the audiobook, and I think this will be a really good time. And then last but not least for September, if I have some extra free time and the urge, this is technically my book club's pick for the month. It's called The Grace Year. This, I believe, is a standalone fantasy book about girls in their 16th year get what they call the Grace Year. It says, in Garner County, girls are told they have a power to lure grown men from their beds, to drive women mad with jealousy. They believe their very skin emits a powerful aphrodisiac, the potent essence of youth, of a girl on the edge of womanhood. That's why they're banished for their 16th year, to release their magic into the wild so they can be purified and ready for marriage. But not all of them will make it home. So yeah, I think it is a Hunger Games-esque book, basically revolving around, you know, coming of age. I've heard it's really good. One of the girls in our book club said she's already read this and loved it, and I saw a lot of good reviews on it when I was looking it up. So if I have time, this is definitely on my radar, but those other books kind of take precedence. It's 400 pages and a standalone, so I do think I could sneak this in one weekend maybe, but we'll just have to see, won't we? And then, like I said, if I get an opportunity to, I would love to start Oathbringer. If I'm feeling really crazy, I would love to finish Oathbringer. That would be amazing. But anywho, that's September. I forgot one. If I have need for a palate cleanser / a kind of unplanned read and maybe get a little extra time, I really think I want to read Alchemy of Secrets sooner rather than later. Something about this is just screaming September to me. So either September or November, not October. This is like a September or November read in my mind, but yeah, this definitely falls into the category of if I have time, it's happening. Okay, so October falls under the category of I'm flying a little too close to the sun. I have such an ambitious October TBR. I'm definitely not getting to all of these, but I have a big like list of books that I would love to get to if possible. Some of them are higher priorities than others, but let's just get into them. First, if possible, I would really like to finish the first 3 books of Mistborn Era 2. So that's The Alloy of Law, The Shadows of Self, and then The Bands of Mourning. My October Cosmere, that is it. Oh, and finishing Oathbringer. I didn't grab Oathbringer. I'll insert a picture. And I guess technically Dawnshard. If I have time, I would love to read, well, technically finish Oathbringer, because ideally I start it in September, finish Oathbringer, read Dawnshard, read these 3, and that will be my Cosmere October. That being said, that's crazy, and I know that. Let's look at the non-Cosmere reads I have on my radar. The first one, and non-negotiably, is Mate. I don't have Mate. This is Bride. Mate is the sequel to Bride. That is one of those that kind of falls under that category of like non-negotiable. I will be reading this pretty much as soon as I get my fingers on it, because I love Bride and I love Allie Hazelwood, and I have to devour that. So pretend this is Mate. but that's going on my must-read priorities stack for October. Another book on my like have to read in October list is Not Quite Dead Yet. This is the newest release by Holly Jackson. She is one of my all-time favorite kind of like thriller authors. Is she a thriller author? Like mysteries? I don't know. She usually writes YA, and this is her first adult book. And I'm really, really excited to read this. But it does take place, I think, starting Halloween night. I wonder if I can find one. It has like these like time jumps. Of course, I can't find one. There we go. So I do think this would be a fun one to start around Halloween, but that's technically October. So I think it'd be fun to read this very late October, starting November, kind of the same timeline as the character in this book. But again, this kind of falls under that category of I have to read this pretty much ASAP. And it is a literal crime that I'm making myself wait for the seasonally appropriate time to read this, because I want to read it. Are you kidding me? Holly Jackson, my queen. Also, I have a signed copy, just to flex on you real fast. But yeah, really excited to read this one. Next one that kind of falls into the category, my copy's like all beat up and I didn't realize this earlier. Also, it has the Lolly finalist thing. I think that's cool. Anywho, the next one on my have to read like non-negotiably in October is Phantasma. This was my book of the month pick for my Lolly finalist, like I said, last year, or I guess this year, whatever you want to say. And I think that this would be a perfect spooky read. It is basically, I don't think I said what either of my other books were about. Oh well, it is basically about a girl who, I believe her sister gets kidnapped, and she has to go into, I want to say it's hell, to compete to try to find her sister. As when Ophelia discovers her mother brutally murdered, there is no time to grieve. She has inherited the family's fearsome magic and enormous debt. Circumstances go from dire to deadly, however, when Ophelia's sister decides to pay off the loan by entering Phantasma, a competition where contestants rarely escape alive, and the victor is granted a single wish. The only way for Ophelia to save her sister is to win. Phantasma is a cursed manor full of twisting corridors and lavish ballrooms, staffed by enticing demons and fatal temptations. And then it says, when a charming, arrogant stranger claims he can help, Ophelia knows better than to trust him. But her sister's life is on the line, so she can't afford to turn him away. Oh yeah, I've heard this is crazy spicy too. So, it says the only thing deadlier than losing the game is losing your heart. Yeah. Anywho, this just screams October to me, so I'll be reading it. Probably early October though, because my Libby hold for the audiobook has already come through, so there's a really good chance this actually might be in September. The audiobook gods are against me, okay? The next one I would really, really like to read in October if there's time. This book is kind of chonky, to be honest. Oh, I forgot about the deckled edges. I love a book with deckled edges. This is The Devils by Joe Aubry. Rewind it back. This is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Come on, this is literally an October book. The fact that this book released in like March, that's crazy. This is basically about, there is a priest, and I don't know if he has them hiding. It'd be easier if I like read these things, but okay, turns out I might not be smart enough for Joe Abercrombie because I can't even read his blurb. But from what I know about this, a priest finds basically like a dungeon in a church of monsters, and he's like, oh, that's weird, but the monsters and him go on a quest. They go on a little questy quest to do something, I think to fight a bad guy, and there's like a vampire, a demon, a witch, I think an invisible dude, all the stuff. Oh, a werewolf, and the priest obviously, and I just think that the vibes sound immaculate. I've also heard the audiobook for this is amazing, and I've never read a Joe Abercrombie before, so I'm really excited to give this one a shot. Okay, now we're falling kind of to the category of if I have time, I'd really, really like to read these in October. First we have Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This is like literally about a girl who, I believe, I literally went through this exact book like 5 videos ago or something like that. I think it was my fall radar video, and I could not figure out the blurb of this book to save my life, and we're about to struggle again. If I remember right, this lady, her mother claims she was poisoned and she's in danger if she can't figure out who the murderer is, but the person she partners up with to solve these crimes is Death himself, and they like start a romantic connection, I think. It's like a YA dark gothic romance. And you know what? Once again, I've met her and I think her vibes are immaculate. And I think the vibes of this are going to be immaculate. And it's one of those that if I do not get to this October, it is definitely getting read in like December, maybe, once I have some free time. But yeah, this is very high on the want to read list. Next I have Gallant. This is by V.E. Schwab. Again, I don't know a ton about this book other than I believe it's about like a haunted house and the girl goes to said haunted house. But this one is formatted super weird. There's like pictures and I think it'll be really spooky. I think that because it's square pages, this is one of those books that could potentially be a fast read, but I do fear it might scare me. Like, I just get bad vibes from this book. Like, look at this picture. That's crazy. But, like, good bad vibes. Like, I don't think I want to read this home alone. You know what I'm saying? Next, we have Immortal Consequences. This was my August book of the month pick. This is basically a deadly competition where, if I understand right, they are competing for a chance to be a professor, but they're, like, in hell. They're like academics in hell. It kind of sounds like Catabasis, actually. It's like if Catabasis and Blood Over Brighthaven had a baby. I might be onto something there. I doubt it. But, anywho, this is one of those books that is like on the radar, but because it's kind of a newer release, I'd rather get some of my older pile first. But also, I love reading Book of the Months ASAP. Like, it makes me feel good when I read them around when I got them. I don't know. It's like a complex, I guess. I do think this one will be really intriguing. I am really excited to read it. And also, once again, slayed the special edition game. Okay, and then these last two are on my radar, but they are like, I don't want to say bottom priority because I would still absolutely love to read them this October. But if I don't get to them, I'll be okay, I think. The first one is an indie book I've picked up. It's called The Bombshell Devil's Advocate by Nikita Bell. This book, I've spoken about this a couple times before in other videos. It's like illustrated and it's basically about a girl who is fighting demons. She like works a deal with the devil and she has to claim souls for the amount of years she's been alive or something like that. Again, this is an author I've met. She misspelled my name though, which I just think is so funny. It's like one of the funniest things ever. Also, take a moment to appreciate the naked hardcover. I think this book is seriously gorgeous. But because it's an indie gem, I'm a little worried that it's not going to have an audiobook. And sometimes books that I have to read with just strictly my eyeballs, I read slower. So I am worried I'm not going to have time to get to this spooky season. But I definitely do still want to pick it up and enjoy it soonish. It's just one of those we're gonna have to see, okay? Okay, and then this last one is one of my newest additions to my shelf. If you watched my birthday book haul, I found this at Half Price Books like last weekend or whatever. But this is Immortal Dark by Tijest Gurma. I probably just butchered the heck out of her name. But this is basically about a girl who, like, her sister gets kidnapped by vampires, but it's like a school for vampires, so she has to sneak into the school and befriend the vampires who kidnapped her sister or something like that. I don't know. Again, this is one of those books I picked up strictly on vibes. The sprayed edge is pretty cool. It says, "No soul can enter without an invitation." I love vampires. Obviously, this is giving spooky season. One of my favorite YouTubers, again, it's Heather. I think I've already linked her down below, but if not, I'm bringing her up again. Heather McCleary. She said this is one of her favorite spooky reads. She recommended it. She said she's read it twice. She read it last spooky season and this spooky season. And I think in November, the sequel is about to come out. So it'd be really, really cool if I did get to this one. But again, since this is one of my newest books on my shelf, this is kind of bottom tier priority because I'd really like to get to some of my backlist first. But if I do get to this, that'd be cool as heck. Also, this book is like just simply gorgeous, so I can't get over that. And I don't know about you, but when one of my books is beautiful, I feel this, like, something in me gets compelled to read it faster. So hopefully I get to this. But like I said, I flew a little too close to the sun for my October TBR. Okay, I have to be honest with you, November also is flying a little close to the sun. I also want to go ahead and make a note. I didn't look at the back of my paper, but I did edit my timeline, so I am going to have to count that into my monthly goals. I edited my timeline for my Cosmere reading to go Words of Radiance, Edgedancer, Oathbringer, Dawnshard, Rhythm of War, then to read Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self, Bands of Mourning, Yumi, The Lost Metal, and then it says Sunlit Man and Wind of Truth, but I think I'm going to do Wind and Truth and then the Sunlit Man. I've heard so many people say you have to read that completely last. So I am going to go ahead and tell you November in my original planned order, but just know that Oathbringer and Rhythm of War are probably both going to be October. That is crazy. That's like 4,000 combined total pages. And then this month will be like all of Era 2. Guys, I don't know what I got myself into, but I did this to myself. And you know what? I'm having an immaculate time reading the Cosmere. It's just, like I said, I fear I may have gone a little too close to the sun. In my original timeline, like the one I was showing you, technically first I have Rhythm of War. This book is so long. It is literally, oh my god, it's 1,200 something pages. That's crazy. What are the end papers of this one? Gorgeous. Brandon Sanderson always has the coolest art in his books. Oh, is that Shalon? Oh, right. I feel like I'm seeing spoilers low-key, but I don't know yet. Oh no, this book is like too big. I can't put the dust jacket back on. What I was saying is, technically, this is here, but it's not going to be here because I'm going to switch it and Mistborn Era 2. But yeah, this is Oathbringer. This cover, Rhythm of War. This cover is literally gorgeous. This book is so fracking heavy though. Oh my god. Yeah, this is book 4 of the Stormlight Archive. According to the timeline that I redid, I have to read this before Mistborn Era 2. So, this is in October. Anywho, that's probably confusing. So then, we shall pretend I'm reading Mistborn Era 2 right now. And then we'll take an intermission for Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I do not know anything about this book other than it is one of his secret projects, and it is a Asian-inspired culture, and there's ramen in it. And I only know that because they sell a ramen bowl as like one of the merch pieces you can buy. I don't really want to read too much into this. I love going into Brandon Sanderson blind, if I'm just being honest with you, but yeah, I do plan to read this as a break in between the first 3 books of the second half of Mistborn before picking up The Lost Metal. This is the last currently published book of Mistborn. This is the end of Mistborn Era 2. I think I'm really gonna love these books. Like, he has guns. That's cool. Can I say guns on YouTube? I don't know, actually. Whoa! I should stop flipping through these books because I haven't read to this part yet, and I feel like I'm seeing spoilers, but there was a full page, like, comic books page, and I think that's pretty cool. That's my Cosmere plan. And if you didn't know, Dragonsteel Nexus is December 3rd through 7th or something like that, or maybe those are just the days I'm out of town. I think it's the 4th through the 6th. If I actually complete all of my Cosmere plan, I will have read everything except doing a reread of Tress of the Emerald Sea. I have read it, but I would really like to reread it now that I have some Cosmere knowledge. Wind and Truth and The Sunlit Man. I think if I do complete this plan, those are the only 3 that I will be missing. I guess The Lost Metal would be the one that I'm like actively reading while I'm there. I anticipate whatever one I read like last, I will be reading into the conference. Like I don't have complete faith in myself. But anywho, that is the current plan for the rest of November, assuming I don't have a Cosmere freak out. These are the books I have planned. First is Shield of Sparrows. I couldn't tell you a single thing about this book other than there are monsters and she is a sparrow, and that's about it. Like I think she is, that they're like a class of knights or something like that called the sparrows. It says being the sparrow isn't an honor, it's a trap. So I have gorgeous edition once again. I will say though, this might be one of those books that I read sooner rather than later, because once again the audiobook gods said, oh, you want to read this in November? Cute, check it out right now. So I do currently, like today, have this checked out from the library, but I think the vibes are giving November, and I couldn't tell you why other than like the art. There's just something about this moody gothic look that to me is like, hey, this is a transitioning into winter book. It says, long ago the monsters unleashed the gods, not the monsters. The gods unleashed monsters upon the 5 kingdoms of Calandra to remind us that humans are insignificant and that we must pray to the gods for mercy throughout our fragile, fleeting lives. Oh my gosh. It says I didn't need a deity. I can't read, guys. To remind me I was powerless. Being a princess was never more than a performance. 23 years of empty titles and hollow traditions, my sister revels in the spectacle, basking in the attention and flawlessly playing her part. I was never asked to be a part of the charade until the day an infamous monster hunter sailed to our shores. The day a prince walked into my father's throne room and ruined my life. The day I married a stranger, signed a magical treaty in blood, and set off across the continent to the most treacherous kingdom in all the realm. That was the day I learned that not all myths are make-believe, that lies and legends are often the same, and that the only way to kill monsters we fear was to become one. Whoa, that's crazy. I feel like I read a different preview than that. Maybe it's the one on Goodreads, because there was something about, unless I'm remembering a different book, I thought the reason she was called the Sparrow was her sister was supposed to be married, and she took the place, and for some reason that's called the Sparrows, or something like that. But anywho, yeah, I'd really like to read this year, if possible. The cover got bent. Anywho, I've got Pierre Nessie. This is one of those short AF books, and I do have the audiobook for this as well, so I do feel like if there comes a day that I just need a little quick, thought-provoking binge palate cleanser, this is her. She's waiting. She has been waiting. If you don't know, good, because I've been told that this is one of those books you have to go into blind, so I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I don't know anything about it. Let's go in blind together. But yeah, I'm putting this in November only because, again, there's something about it. It's giving winter. Like I said, though, I don't know a single thing about this book, so I have no idea. These last two, I think, are both on my 25 and 2025, which I have technically abandoned because Cosmere. This is now my whole 2025 and 2025. Like, what do you mean? I don't have time or brain capacity for anything else. But if somehow I work up the brain capacity, I do have the Stormcrow and Sorcery of Thorns. Again, both of these just kind of give moody, atmospheric, winter-ish vibes. It's 2 fantasies though. Actually, everything I have is fantasy. that might be a problem for me, but also like I'm a fantasy girly, so maybe not. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you much about these because there's a really good chance I don't get to them. I'm flying way too close to the sun with this TBR. It's part of why we make these videos though. It's so that everyone can bully us when we don't read the things we say we're going to. Oh, also bad news. I just remembered I am a pre-order girly. So there is a really good chance also that pre-orders are going to come in the mail that just make me yeet everything else out the window. Because a good example, some of my favorite thriller books is the everyone in my family has murdered somebody or has killed somebody. One second. This book. The third book is about to come out. And I think it comes out in November. And you know what? The second that shows up in my doorstep, I'm probably gonna read it because I love this book and this series. I've read all 3 that are currently published. There's 2 traditional books and a novella. And I've loved each of them. I've devoured them. So the second that, I guess, 4th book comes, yeah, I'm probably gonna read that. But anywho, we are technically on to December now, which, if you've been following along, December means that Cosmere catch-up will technically be over. Like, I will no longer have pressure to read as much as possible. That being said, unless I'm just absolutely burned out, I do think I want to read Wind and Truth and The Sunlit Man and finish anything else I haven't finished in December. I think reading it as close to Dragonsteel Nexus as possible is what will make me happiest. Because I'll just, be surrounded by all the people there in their prime element of Brennan Sanderson world. But the good news about December is literally everything else I read can be whatever the frick I want, because I will no longer have the pressure of like 1,500 page books staring me in the eyes. The 3 kind of on my radar right now. 2 of them I have here in front of me. One of them is coming in the mail. The first one is Variation. I don't think that there is a single thing about this book that is wintry other than like the blue. So maybe I'll wait and read this in the spring. I don't know. There's just something about this book that when I was looking earlier, I was like, yeah, I think this could be a good one to add for December. So maybe I won't read it. Maybe I will. Also kind of want to read, oh, you know what? The author who wrote Icebreaker, Hannah Grace. Is that her name? I think so. She has a Christmas book coming out. I think that's gonna go. Never mind. Pretend this is Hannah Grace's Christmas book. Actually, just kidding. Maybe I'll read both. But yeah, I just think December, to calm down from all of the craziness of whatever just happened, I want to read some kind of fluffier romances. Actually, this one's not fluffy. I've heard this is like emotionally traumatizing, but this one plus Christmas book, pretty good. And then, if I'm not completely burnt out on fantasy, I might pick up Catabasis. I might wait and read this, say, in like February time. Still cold outside because this is definitely giving like fall winter vibes, but I do think I would like to read this sooner rather than later. It's just I don't think I can fit it in my current timeline of craziness that I have going on. So I do think this will be a end of year, early next year read, but this is definitely on my radar. Like I said, it kind of just depends on how I'm feeling fantasy wise. And then the other book that's on my December radar is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I just ordered books 1 and 2 from somebody on Pango earlier today, so those should be here hopefully soon. I think I want to read those in December because they are like literally ice books. It's about like a hockey town. But if you saw one of my haul videos recently, the one where I went shopping with my friends, my friend Olivia and I both found copies of book 3. So I do think it would be fun to get and read all 3 of them in the winter time. Like maybe one in December, January, February, or maybe just back to back to back. I don't know. Starting in December, like I said, my jackals will be gone and I'll be free from Brennan Sanderson, kind of. And I can read whatever I want, which granted, take that with a grain of salt. I can always read whatever I want. Like I said earlier, I'm doing this to myself. I really want to try and finish as much of the Cosmere as possible before going to this conference. But yeah, that's not me. So we'll see what I do. If you watched this whole thing, thank you so much. I know it was crazy and chaotic, but this is kind of to help me a little bit, as well as let y'all know, just in case you're curious. Obviously, watch my monthly wrap-ups to see what I actually do. Anywho, like I said, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys so much, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one. Thanks.